Today is November 5th. It's the 310th day of the year, and this is the On This Day podcast. Today is Guy Fawkes Night in the UK, New Zealand, and parts of Canada. Also known as Bonfire Night, this night's celebrations are in commemoration of the arrest of Guy Fawkes on this day in 1605. Guy Fawkes is arrested on this day when he's found underneath the House of Lords in London, standing guard over a massive stockpile of explosives intended to be used to assassinate King James I of England. Guy Fawkes, also known as Guido Fawkes, an equally precarious name, is one of 13 Catholic conspirators who plot to kill the Protestant King James in order to restore a Catholic monarch to the throne in the form of James's 9-year-old daughter, Elizabeth. Called the Gunpowder Plot, it's a terrorist plot on an unprecedented scale. The conspirators have tunneled underneath England's Parliament in the heart of London and planted 40 or so barrels of gunpowder there. Then they learn that they can just rent a vault directly underneath the House of Lords, a cellar chamber known as an undercroft. So they do that, and they move the barrels to the undercroft and cover them with kindling to look like piles of firewood for heating. Guy Fawkes is recruited into the plot for his experience with explosives. He's got 10 years military experience fighting with the Spanish and the Dutch revolt during the 80 Years' War. That's where he adopts the name Guido. With the explosives in place, the plan is to blow up the House of Lords during the state opening of Parliament, which is attended by the King and his close relations and Privy Council. Basically, everybody who's anybody will be there. The conspirators prepare to kidnap the king's daughter Elizabeth to keep her safe so she can ascend the throne. But before all that can happen, the plot is discovered by the king's men, and the plotters are sought. Guy Fawkes is caught alongside the ginormous pile of gunpowder barrels in the undercroft beneath Parliament on this day in 1605. He is arrested, tortured on the rack until he confesses, sentenced to death, and executed in front of the House of Lords in a most gruesome fashion, which I'll refrain from describing because this is a family show. But trust me, what they do to Guy Fawkes, it's no lethal injection, that's for sure. After Guy Fawkes is arrested in the early morning hours on this day in 1605, and the plot to assassinate King James is foiled, Londoners celebrate the king's survival by lighting bonfires all over the city. November 5th is made a public day of Thanksgiving, celebrated every year. For centuries, it's seen as a day of vaguely Protestant and anti-Catholic sentiment due to the nature of the Gunpowder Plot. But these days, Guy Fawkes Night is just a good old-fashioned opportunity to light some bonfires, set off some fireworks, and enjoy a few libations. And to occasionally burn Guy Fawkes in effigy. Robert Maxwell is a Czech-born multimillionaire publishing mogul and former member of British Parliament who lives high on the hog in London with a mansion in Oxford, a luxury yacht, and a helicopter to ferry him between his trophy properties. That is, until the early morning hours on this day in 1991, when Robert Maxwell disappears from his yacht off the Canary Islands in the Atlantic Ocean. Robert Maxwell is born Jan Ludwig Hoch in Czechoslovakia in 1923. He grows up dirt poor, or as he tells it, he doesn't even have a pair of shoes until he's 7 years old. His family dies in Auschwitz during the war, but he manages to escape to France. When the war begins, the self-educated Jan Hoch joins the Czech army in exile in France. And by the time the war ends in 1945, he has reinvented himself as Robert Maxwell, a British Army officer, with commendations for bravery, including the Military Cross, which he receives from no less than Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, distant relation of mine, but I digress. After the war, Maxwell, who speaks several languages, uses the connections he's made during the war and secures distribution rights for scientific publications in the Allied occupied areas of war-torn Europe in the mid-1940s. His book distribution company grows into a major publishing house over the next 20 years. In 1964, he's elected as Member of Parliament and serves until he loses his seat in the 1970 election. In the 1970s and 80s, Maxwell goes on a spending spree, buying newspapers and media entities such as the Daily Mirror, Prentice Hall, MTV Europe, and the American publisher Macmillan. Maxwell spends billions of dollars to build his empire, and in the 1980s he is one of the richest people in the world. But what is not known at the time is that he is severely overleveraged. What is not known at the time is that he has stolen £100 million from his company's pension plan to cover debt payments. What is not known at the time is that the media empire he has built is on the verge of bankruptcy, with over £2 billion of debt, which is the equivalent of, oh my goodness gracious, in American dollars. On this day in 1991, Robert Maxwell is relaxing on his yacht, the Lady Ghislaine, named for his youngest daughter, Ghislaine. The yacht is motoring off the coast of the Canary Islands, due west of Morocco in the Atlantic Ocean. Maxwell is seen by the yacht's crew walking on deck at 4:25 in the morning. At 9 a.m., the Lady Ghislaine pulls into port in Los Cristianos on the Canary Island of Tenerife, and Maxwell is nowhere to be found. His body is found later on this day by fishermen 20 miles southwest of a neighboring island, more than 100 miles away from the Lady Ghislaine's route. When Tenerife's civil governor is asked how the body could have gotten there so far away from the yacht's route in so short a time, he replies, quote, "That's a good question." It is presumed that Robert Maxwell falls overboard and drowns after suffering a heart attack. Maxwell is not in the best of health before he disappears, suffering from chronic lung and heart ailments. But an autopsy finds that he did not drown, and it also finds that there's no conclusive proof of a heart attack, no evidence of alcohol or drug overdose, no evidence of poison. In fact, doctors cannot confirm whether he is alive or dead when he falls into the sea on this day. An official inquiry rules out suicide and rules out murder. The mystery surrounding Robert Maxwell's death only deepens and provides fertile ground for conspiracy theories to take root. The most prominent theory being that Maxwell is a longtime agent of Mossad, Israeli intelligence, and that he is assassinated when his handlers in Tel Aviv get concerned that they are losing control of him, killing him with an untraceable solution injected with a microscopic needle. But like the drowning, heart attack, suicide, and poison, there's no conclusive evidence to support that theory. No, it's all one big question mark, the mystery of what happens to Robert Maxwell, who disappears from his yacht in the middle of the night in the Atlantic Ocean, and hours later is found dead of unknown causes 100 miles away, on this day in 1991. There are 56 days left in the year. On This Day is produced by me, Dave Schultz. Thank you very much for listening. Born on this day in 1930, German historian Hans Mommsen, a leading expert on Nazi Germany, best known for his functionalist interpretation of Hitler's Third Reich and the Holocaust, that Hitler was a weak dictator, uncertain and unwilling to take decisions, and that the Nazis were too disorganized to be a totalitarian dictatorship. Hans Mommsen, born on this day in 1930, passes away on this day in 2015 at the age of 85. So if you're still listening, Guy Fawkes, very dangerous name. Talk to you tomorrow.